Thank you. My name is, again, Josh Grisdale, and I run Accessible Japan. And it's a website that shares the accessibility features of living in Japan with people who are interested in visiting that have a disability. I didn't grow up in high Roppongi Hills, but instead of, when I looked out my window, this is what I saw. And this is the view from my bedroom. I lived in a small town outside of Uxbridge, and it was, outside of Toronto, called Uxbridge. And it was me, my sisters, my parents, and about 20 sheep. So that's what I spend most of my time looking at. Now I have what's called cerebral palsy, and it's a very fancy way of saying that I have brain damage. There's two types of ways to describe brain damage, and after your brain is finished developing and you maybe have an accident or something like that, then that would be a regular type of brain damage. Cerebral palsy happens when your brain is still developing, so when you're very young, and because of that, as you develop, your body will develop differently. And it can have a wide variety. For example, some people can just have a little bit of trouble moving their arms around, and other people can be completely have to stay in bed all the time. I'm somewhat in the middle. I'm classified as severe, but for me, the way it affects me is my arms and my legs. So they're physically healthy, but the signals from my brain don't properly get conveyed to move the muscles the way I want. And because it happened when I was young, when I developed, for example, my hands, the muscles at the bottom were always tight. And so as I grew bigger, because it was tight, my hands started to bend down. So when you look at pictures when I was a kid, my hands were much more straight. And so that's sort of one of the main differences between regular brain damage and cerebral palsy. So what does that mean for my daily life? Well, I have to have somebody what's called a helper. And maybe in English it would be more commonly called a personal care assistant. So today I'm here with Hayashi-san, so I'm very thankful for his assistance every day of my life. So what happens is people with disabilities can get evaluated by the city they're living in, and they get a certain number of hours that they can use in their daily life. And then you can contract with different companies in your local area and make schedules for your daily routine. So my helpers help me from the first thing in the morning. So the first person I see in the morning, the last person I see at night is my helper. And not so romantic, but yeah. So they help me get up in the morning and have a shower, get dressed, etc., get ready for work. And then after work, they'll help me maybe with some shopping or with cooking or cleaning around the house. And then at night, they help me get into bed and do it all again the next day. For when I go out, my daily life requires a lot of planning. Planning ahead, not something I can just jump on a train and go meet somebody somewhere. I need to think of, for example, if I have that night, I have a helper scheduled, I have to be back before that helper comes, or else I'll have to pay the cancellation fee, or I may not be able to get into bed. When I think about transportation, I always have to leave extra time. Any transfer usually probably takes about 20 minutes longer than it says on Google Maps. So I have to take those things into account. When I'm going out with friends as well, I need to think about restaurants. It can be a very big challenge to find a place to eat. It's a very simple task for most people, but for me, because of my electric wheelchair, it's very difficult to get into many restaurants, particularly in Japan where they tend to be very small. And there's I love Japan, but I don't like a genkan because it's a step that keeps me out. So it can be discouraging at times trying to go out. Maybe you want to eat ramen, and so you're out with friends, you want to go get ramen, you find a lot of delicious looking places, but you can't get into any of them. And then you end up having to go to a family restaurant or something like that. And so planning ahead is very important so you can figure out what is available for you. So with all those extra requirements, why would I come to Japan? And well, it was talked about earlier, I took a class in Japanese in high school, and my Japanese teacher, he really loved Japan, and that was infectious. And so I thought, oh, I wanted to try going. And my parents, they had always encouraged me to follow my dreams. They always said that even though you have a disability, you can do what other people can do to a certain degree or as same as them. It may just take a bit more time or do things a little bit differently, but you should always follow your dreams. Now they say they regret that because I've moved to Japan now and never go home. But when the first time I came, there was really little to no information on accessibility in Japan. Now Google was around at that point, but if there's nothing to find, then your search results are zero. So through a lot of phone calls and very, very vague books and stuff, or decided to take the risk, and I came to Japan with my dad for a couple of weeks back in the year 2000. And I was really surprised to find how accessible Japan was. It was different than my expectations, I think. And I realized that, hey, this is a place I could live. And so after finishing university, I decided that I wanted to come and move to Japan. When I did that, there was a real requirement for a lot of logistics. As I said, I need helpers. In Canada, the government provides the helpers, and in Japan as well, the government provides the helpers. But in that interim, I needed to bring somebody with me to take care of me until I could get into the system. So I had to come with someone for about 6 months until I was able to get fully in. And as well as finding a place to live. It can be very difficult to find an apartment that's accessible to wheelchair users. So yeah, again, a lot of planning and overcoming logistics. But I got here, and I've been here for 10 years now. And as mentioned, I became a Japanese citizen last year. And so I'm actually no longer a Canadian citizen because I had to give up my citizenship. But here I am to stay for good, whether you like it or not. The company I work at right now is called Azali Group, and one of their core principles is giving back to the society and your local community. And I feel the same way. And so I wanted to use the experiences I had as a person with a disability that's come from another country. And probably very few people like that in Japan at the moment. So I thought I should use what I have to give back. So that brought me to the need that a lot of people face. I think that's well illustrated with those stairs here. Of course, it started personal. When I just wanted to go out with friends, or if I wanted to go on vacation in Japan, just the challenge of finding the right information, because you don't want to go on a vacation and then find out that you can't get into your hotel, because that would be very traumatic. So in doing a lot of research, I thought, I was able to read Japanese now, so I was looking at things in Japanese. I realized there still isn't much information in English for people with disabilities. And just as an example here, you're of course going to go to tourist sites when you're coming here. And if you look at this website, you look at the information that's available in English, and it has very basic things like the regular hours, days closed, which is a very useful information for just your average visitor. But you don't know anything about it if you're in a wheelchair. What's available, if you go all the way out there, are you going to be able to actually enjoy the place? But if you look on the Japanese site, they have a lot of information. For example, how far can you go up the castle? Are there wheelchairs available for rent? Are there wheelchair toilets available? Where are they? So all that information is there, but it's available only in Japanese. So for most people, they're not going to necessarily go and look and translate the website because they figured, if it's not in English, then there's nothing there. So there's a real difference between the English and Japanese versions of places. As well, for your hotels, this website, they have the universal twin. That's sort of another side note is that the phrasing in Japan and in North America or Europe or wherever is quite different. So universal twin, if you said that to someone, they'd have no idea what you're talking about. Or barrier-free, nobody would know what that means in most English-speaking countries. Most people would search for accessible. So even if it was written in as barrier-free, that's not likely going to click for somebody who doesn't know the terminology. And then again, on the same site, if you look at the English page, all the rooms, none of them list the universal twin being available. Now, there's probably a practical reason to this in that they can't use the booking system to book accessible rooms for the most part because they want to ensure that it's people who actually have disabilities that are using it. So generally, you need to have some sort of communication with the hotel to book your room. And so maybe the hotel made a decision that we don't have enough English staff to be able to handle those requests. Or they might have come to the idea that, well, nobody in a wheelchair is going to be visiting anyway, so there's no point in translating this web page as well. So I realized that there's a lot of challenges that people who want to come just for a vacation have. So that led me to the journey of starting Accessible Japan. I like this picture. My mom took it. I didn't know she took it. And I wish she had a better phone, though, so better pictures. So my mission statement for Accessible Japan is to provide as much information as possible on accessibility in Japan so travelers with disabilities can make informed decisions based on their needs so they can enjoy Japan to its fullest. So the end result is I want people to enjoy Japan. I love Japan. That's why I've moved here, and that's why I'm going to stay here forever. And I want people to enjoy Japan as well. But a lot of people with disabilities, when they're looking for places to go, if there's not the information there, they don't want to necessarily spend all the money to come over here if they don't know what they're going to come into. So I try to get as much information as possible. And there are so many different types of disabilities. I can't say this place is accessible or this place is not accessible, because that's not something I can decide for everybody. So what I do is I try to provide as much information as possible, and then they can make decisions based on their own needs and whether they go to those places or not. So Accessible Japan has been constantly pivoting and updating and evolving. I'd like to take credit for all of the ideas, but a lot of them come from just interacting with people who have contacted me. For example, I have a page on bringing a guide dog to Japan. That's not something I'd ever considered, but somebody asked me a question, well, what's the system like for bringing a guide dog to Japan? And because of that idea, that part of the web page was born. So it's constantly been changing. At first, it was just basic information on how to get around, maybe on a train, or what it's like to try to find a hotel, or just sort of very general ideas, and as well as a blog. And they use the blog to introduce different parts of Japan to people. For example, how to find a restaurant if you have a wheelchair, or even parts of Japanese culture. So there's an anime there, A Silent Voice, and the character from that story, she's deaf. So she has trouble communicating, and so that's sort of part of the story, and in general about human communication. So somebody wrote a review for that, so I put that on there as well. So, and then of course I have a YouTube channel as well. I use YouTube in a different way than a lot of people use, in that I look at people's reviews of places and don't really listen to what they're saying, but I'm constantly looking at the ground to see if there's steps or if there's any barriers. So because of that, I realized, I probably should have some videos as well, because it speaks much more than a few pictures or my comments. So I try to provide as much information in the videos as well. Sorry. And again, going back to the hotels, I created a searchable database of hotels with accessible rooms. If you go to places like Rakuten or other travel sites, you have a little checkbox in the extra information where you can check off is accessible or not. But usually that just says that there is an accessible room. It's still up to you to go and research everything. So I tried to collate all the information I could get and put it into the database. So I got that either through what information is available on the websites, or contacting the hotels with surveys and asking, as well as getting people to put their own reviews on. Sorry. And a lot of those things include toilets. This will come up a couple times, so I hope you're used to toilets. It's something everybody needs to do, and it's something that's very important if you're going to be spending the money to stay a place. And in places like Europe or in North America, there are very strict rules about what an accessible room is like. They have maybe what angles the walls are at, how you can approach the toilet, how much space is between the beds, etc. And it's all very well dictated, so you can, in general, with assurance, rent a room and you know you're going to be okay. Where in Japan, it tends to be more general guidelines of what's accessible. So you can find two hotels with quote-unquote accessible rooms, and one will have maybe some handlebars next to the toilet, and that's it. And that's the only difference from a regular room. And other places will have these huge sprawling rooms with a toilet that's covered in white tiles and looks like a hospital with all these equipment that you've never seen before. So it can be quite a variety. So I try to show that on the reviews of the hotels as well. Bathrooms, of course, the showers are difficult at times because people can't necessarily get into the bathtub. A lot of the places in North America will have a roll-in shower, so you can drive your wheelchair right into the shower area. But a lot of places in Japan, very, very few have those. So I had a little life hack, is that you can see on the ground there's actually a drain on the floor. So as long as you don't tell the staff, you can put the chair next to the bathtub and shower there. As well as just information on what the rooms look like. So not all of them have that kind of information, but as much as I can get. As well, of course, people want to see things when they come to Japan. So I write reviews of attractions. Because I live in Tokyo, most of the attractions tend to be in Tokyo area, but I have some others as well. So they have general information, like your regular Japan guide or whatever would have some background information, how to get there, what the hours are, etc. But I go into other details as well. For example, if they say they have an elevator, I try it out and see what it's like. So sure, on the website it says there's an elevator, but I wouldn't be able to use this one by myself because there's not enough room to turn around or push the buttons. But again, just that doesn't mean that you can't go there, just you should know that in advance. as well as maybe for the gardens, the routes that are available for accessible travel. Some have, like this is Rikugen, I think, and it has quite extensive coverage of the grounds, but some places only have maybe about a quarter of the places that are actually accessible. So if you're going to be going there, you might not want to intentionally go to that area. And just little things that may occur along your path, such as these steps. And of course, toilets. And there's only one more mention of toilets, so bear with me. So yeah, when you're going out, it's an essential thing that most people don't think about. But if you're going to be traveling around and you need to use a toilet in the pinch, you want to know that something's available. So this helps people go and just sort of rest assured that there is something there, and I don't need to worry about it too much. Next things, I added a general glossary and phrasebook for Japanese to English. And again, that was started because somebody asked me some questions. How do you say this or this? So I translated. I thought, oh, well, I should put a page on that. And actually, Lonely Planet contacted me, and they're going to use this as the basis for their accessible travel guides. And tours. I'm not a person who likes tours. Normally, I like to go on my own paths. But a number of people were interested in tours, and so I was able to work with a couple different companies to consult on accessible tours in Japan. This company is called Inside Japan Tours, and they sort of offer a complete package. But there's a couple other ones I work with that have just day tours. And so, yeah, it gives them a chance to experience what it's like to go around and give a tour. So we went to a couple different tourist locations in Tokyo. We rode the train together. Because it's one thing just to sort of read something on the website, and this is how it works, as opposed to actually experience it. And within a couple months of actually having this tour, they had their first disabled guest. And so they were able to give that person a tour around Japan because of the consulting. And I'm writing in Accessible Japan wheelchair #1, but this is #2 here on the screen. A lot of people actually request wheelchairs or other medical equipment in pinches. For most people, they take their wheelchair with them, but there's been times where I've been contacted that somebody, maybe they broke their leg 2 weeks before their vacation. I need to rent a wheelchair, or I'm going with my grandmother and she can't walk very far. Do you know a place I can rent a wheelchair? I don't want to buy one just for coming to Japan. So I tend to work with rental companies for providing most of those, so I subcontract to them. But yeah, in a pinch, this one can fold up, and it's in a bag, and I can send it by takubin to anywhere in the country within a day or two. So, and then of course people want to take something with them sometimes to carry all the information. And it's even if they have a phone with them, they don't want to use the data or something to search on the website. So I made the Accessible Japan travel guide for Tokyo, and it's available right now if you want to buy it on the afterwards. And look at that, it's got 5 stars. And recently I started a forum for the website. A lot of the interactions with guests or with different people have been very important questions that, if you're just doing email, it's sort of one-on-one, and only the people that are involved in that email can see the information. But a lot of the questions, I think, could be very helpful to other people as well. So in a forum kind of base, then it's searchable. People can find it when they're looking for things as well. If there's something I want to put some information on that doesn't necessarily require a full page, just having a little bit of way to add quick information has been a very big help. And I've been growing steadily compared to last year. It's pretty much doubled in access just in the last year. So that is very exciting, except the more exciting thing is the communication with people who are using the website. And recently, I was contacted by someone who said, "Your site has really encouraged me to take my daughter to Japan. She has cerebral palsy and cannot walk very long distances, so she needs a wheelchair to usually get around. We are planning a trip for next year." And so when I talked with this person, his daughter loves anime. So her dream is to go to Akihabara and Nakano Broadway. And so he was asking about Nakano Broadway, and actually I'm not an anime fan, so I had never heard of it. And so, but I took the opportunity to add that to the website, so I went and did a review of it. But that was a real encouragement to me, because that's the whole purpose of this website, is to encourage people to come to Japan and enjoy it, and to have someone actually say that, because of this, I had the courage to bring my daughter here. So Accessible Japan and Google have a very strong relationship. I think the first thing is our shared goals. And Google's, of course, is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And I think that's a very common goal that we have as well. I'm sort of maybe a microcosm of that in that I'm using very niche information that not a lot of people use, but sort of put it in one place and make it accessible and useful to people. In my day-to-day use, of course, Google search is probably the biggest thing I use in a two-way kind of communication. So people find Accessible Japan through Google search. Because of the nature of the website being preparation for traveling somewhere, it tends that people only use it until they go to Japan, and then after that they don't really return. So the majority of my visitors are new visitors, so through Google search they're able to find the website. And then for myself, because I can't go to every place that I need to go to, or just to answer random questions that come up, I'm constantly Googling things, so I'm very, very, very grateful for, for your work. And you can definitely put me at the top of the rankings if you want. Hint, hint. Google Analytics is something else I use quite frequently, and I'm actually slightly addicted to it. I have it on my phone. I'm constantly checking how many visitors did I get, how many visitors did I get today. But more importantly, it helps me to focus. Through looking at the statistics, I can see, okay, well, this area of the website isn't very popular. People aren't using it very much, but this area is getting a lot of hits. So people have definitely interest in this area. So I should put because I have limited amount of time and that I can focus on this. So I can put my effort into places where people can benefit the most. Google Maps, of course, is essential for the hotel searches, as well as for me for looking up information and routes for people. And of course, servers aren't free, so Google AdSense helps offset some of the costs for running the website, so I'm very thankful for that. And then just sort of in closing, I just sort of have some general disability and Google working together and the essentials of that. So I think it's important to have a wide variety of input on products. So whether it's either customers or people who are working for the company, they can add input to those things. And you can find some unexpected things. You've heard probably many times about somebody invented some product that they thought was going to go off and sell really well, but it doesn't. But then they had some unexpected use case for it, and that ended up turning into be some huge different world-changing idea. So I encourage you to look for unexpected use cases, and a lot of people with disabilities have them. Just for example, Street View. Most people maybe would use it for when they're driving to look for, okay, I'm going to turn here, this is the landmark I'm looking for. Or probably the most amount of people use Google and like, hey, look, there's my house. And get excited when they see their car parked in front of something or their dog or something. For me, I use it all the time to do quick accessibility spot checks. So I can, if somebody asks me a quick question, I can go in, look at it in Street View, and I can give a rough idea of what kind of barriers they might face, if there's steps or something like that. I use it on my own life as well. When I'm looking for maybe like a restaurant or something, if there's no information available on the website, I can go to Street View and I can see, oh, that's in the basement, I can't get in there. Or, oh, it's on the first floor, I can get in no problem and not need to worry about it anymore. Remote desktop, as I mentioned before, I have my helpers help me, and when I get into bed, I'm not necessarily ready to sleep yet, and I still have some things I want to do, but because of the schedule is firm, I can use Google Chrome Remote Desktop for my phone to keep working on my computer. So that's an unexpected thing, I think, probably for most people. And I think a big thing coming up is Google Home and the smart speaker and IoT devices in general. I think it's going to be a very big game changer for people with disabilities. Most of the commercials except are about families getting up in the morning and saying, hey, turn on the TV, and everybody gets excited about that. But I think the more important is that somebody who can't move and can't use their arms and legs very well can use that, and they can live a more fulfilling life without as much need for other people to help them out. I've dropped the remote control on my TV at times when there's been no helper around and I can't pick it up. And thanks to my Chromecast, I can watch something else on TV without having to worry about that. So look for those unexpected use cases. And since I have your undivided attention, I brought a dream list with me for some Google products, and mostly maps, I think, because that has the biggest impact for a lot of people's lives, or at least for mine anyways. Accessible exits. Right now, I think on maps, it'll show you where the exits are for train stations and subways, but not necessarily which one has the elevator at it. And I spend numerous minutes of my day trying to find which place has an actual exit, and that doesn't come up sometimes. And if it had that, that could really make things a lot easier and smooth for transfers or just going out and about, as well as toilets. This is the last time, I promise. There was an app that I used to use called Check a Toilet. It's a Japanese sort of crowdsourced application, and so people would use the Maps API and they'd put pins down for where there were accessible toilets, and they could share pictures and information on them. But because nobody's really been updating it, it's been depreciated, so you can't actually use it anymore. So if it could be included into Google Maps somehow, where the nearest toilets are, because that could help a lot of people, I think. That's the last toilet thing, I promise. An accessible route option as well. Right now you can choose things like minimize transfers or minimize walking distance. If there's an option for accessible route, a number of times if you choose the walking path and you come to a busy street, it'll go over the bridge to cross the street, and that's the path that you're usually shown. But of course that doesn't work for me. So sometimes I'm following the map and all of a sudden, oh, there's a bunch of steps and I can't get over the other side. So having some sort of accessible route would be fantastic. Accessible hotel rooms, whether they have them or not. When you search in maps, you choose a hotel, and on the left-hand side, it will show you, for example, what the price range is, or the website, the phone number, etc. And lately, I thank you very much for adding accessible stations on for the train stations. I noticed that if they have the same thing for accessible hotels, so if it had just an extra line that said accessible room available, yes or no, that could definitely help a lot of people searching for hotels. And indoor mapping, of course, I'm sure that's something Google's working on, and could help for finding your way around, finding elevators instead of the stairs, because a lot of times elevators are buried way deep into different areas. And maybe possibly bug bounties for accessibility. I'm not sure if you know, but in Japan there are a lot of places called workshops. So for people with different disabilities that can't get regular jobs, maybe they work in these special workshops where they'll maybe sort bottle caps, or they'll put chopsticks into the holders, etc. And it's sort of a way to have people with intellectual disabilities have a job. If they could maybe team up with Google, it could be a good CSR opportunity to maybe go and check the information that's been added to the local guides about whether a place is accessible or not. And finally, to remember that accessibility benefits many. Everybody maybe thinks that, oh, well, that's for a certain group of people. But if we all live long enough, everybody's going to become disabled in some way, whether it's your eyesight gets poorer, or your knees go out and you can't walk as far. And I think it should be thought of not as special money used on this group, but as opposed to investment in your future. I think that's why accessibility is very important. Today I was on the way and I transferred at Morishita, and in front of me in the elevator there's an elderly couple, and there's a couple mothers with baby strollers, and there's people with injuries, and those people are all using things that were quote unquote designed for people with disabilities. So it's important to remember that accessibility is for everyone. It's also for the person delivering takubin. They also appreciate the slopes in the elevators. And then finally, a real dream request is I know that you guys are trying to get as much information on mapping, so if you need another Google car, let me know. You can strap it on the back of my wheelchair, and I will gladly go wherever you want me to. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.